Hello.
Howdy. Garry Chalk is supposed to be here, but he's off chuckling somewhere.
Garry, where are you?
Oh, he's in that chair. He's just invisible and also mute.
We'll answer questions for him. So if you have any questions, especially personal questions about his personal life, we will be glad to answer those questions.
Let's do a Garry Chalk panel.
A Garry Chalk panel, yes, indeed.
Welcome to the Garry Chalk panel. I'm David, this is Richard.
Glad to meet you.
Ready to answer all your Garry Chalk questions. Yay!
Anything worth having is worth waiting for, right? And here he is.
Hello.
Come on up, Garry.
I thought there was some other guy. There was a guy up there doing something.
He was. Now
But then his time ended, and then it was our time, Garry.
And I didn't even know. Nobody told me. I'm standing there waiting for my cue.
Well, here you are.
That's what actors do, you know. They see. I don't even. Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
We wait for our cue.
So we have here today Garry Chalk, David Sobolov, and Richard Newman, all voice actors from Transformers Beast Wars and other projects. So while people get started lining up, thinking of questions, just to open everything up, how did you all get into acting, and then from there, how did you get into Transformers specifically, is usually the question we start things off with.
Okay. Well, could I just preface first before we start? Could I ask those of you who are asking questions to speak clearly, slowly, and loudly so I can understand what you're saying, because this room it echoes, and if you speak too fast we can't really understand what you're saying. So if you can speak slowly and clearly and loudly, I'll be able to hear you. But anyway, back to the matter at hand. Acting. How did I get into acting? Well, I started out when I was really young. I mean, like really young. I was in grade 2 in elementary school, and they wanted to do a production of The Shoemaker and the Elves, and I got cast as the shoemaker. I don't know why, but I did it, and I really liked it. And the teacher said that was fun, and I said okay. So I didn't think about it anymore, and then I started singing in a choir, and I made it onto this guy called Ron Morier's house party, which was our kids party, which was a kids show, Saturday morning kids show, and I sang in a choir on the show, and we got to wear T-shirts and put on makeup, and I thought, well, this is really cool too. But I never thought of it as a job. And when I got into high school, I started doing musicals and acting in musical theater. Again, I never thought of it as a job because we never got paid. They just said, just work harder. And I said, okay. So after I got out of high school, okay, I had a break. I was a stockbroker, I was a social worker, I was in the military, I did a lot of different things. And I decided that I was going to go back to university as a mature student because I finished high school but didn't graduate. I failed math. I know, I'm sad. But there you go. So I went back to college, and I was going to be an English teacher and an anthropology teacher because they were my favorite subjects, and I aced them. But then for my English project, they had me go and watch a show at Langara College, where I went to school, and it was called Of Mice and Men. And the production value was amazing, and the acting in it was fabulous. And I went, oh, this is what I want to do. So I signed up for the school. And the guy who was running the thing was an old English guy, and he looked at me and he goes, all right, so what's it got? And I said, okay, so he's reading a newspaper. I'm not kidding. He's reading a newspaper, and I'm doing my audition, and he finished the newspaper, and I'm, sang and did all this. And he looks up at me and he goes, you got some talent, not much, but some. All right, you're in. And I went, oh, great. I didn't realize you only take 15 people from across the country per term. So I got to be one of those 15 people. And I really liked it, and I started my first professional show was actually in college because I got paid for doing a show called Jacques Brel's Alive in Llewellyn, living in Paris, because we held the show over after we'd finished our school. So we had to get paid for that. So that was great. And ever since, I've been working at first as a theater actor. I did children's theater across the country. I did live stage plays, and then started working in movies. And then around 1983, I guess it was, I did my first cartoon, which is called Hiawatha, and I did it by audition. You can find the actual clip from it on YouTube. And I'd never done it before, but I ended up getting cast in 4 different roles. So I thought, well, this is pretty good. And then I got a check, and I went, wow, that's really good. And so I started pursuing it more, and commercial voice, and I started to realize that this is a great way to make a living. So I did that. I made tapes, and my biggest push for that was, well, the one that launched my career really in voice was IKEA. Death-Defying Plants. It won an award, an advertising award, and that just propelled my career. But what started it was a guy named Chuck Rubin, Sound Ventures in Ottawa in Canada. I got hired to do a voice for the Ottawa Citizen newspaper. The Ottawa Citizen, the Ottawa Citizen for the latest news, sports, and entertainment. But I didn't do the right voice. I went, the Ottawa Citizen for the latest in news, sports, and entertainment. And they didn't like it. They wanted that fresh, stepping off the curb kind of enthusiasm and breathy, like the normal guy. But he was on holidays, so I got fired. I've never been fired before. I thought this was pretty odd, and so I went to Chuck Rubin at Sound Ventures, and I said, "Look, Chuck, if you show me how to do this." What the different kinds of reads and how to make it work and what they are, I'll do your next commercial for free. And he says, okay. So he taught me about breathy reads, commercial, retail, man in the street, public service announcements, all those different things, and made a demo for me. Well, that demo made me about $4 million. So, do you think I made a good deal? Because the commercial was worth $300. So do you think I got a good trade? Oh, yeah. So that's what started my voice career. So just as a lesson learned is if you have lemons, make lemonade. And that's exactly what I did. And I've been doing that ever since. So there you go. Cool.
Well, voice acting found me when I wasn't looking for it. I was playing French horn on small ensembles and pit orchestras, and I was touring Canada singing in an a cappella group, and I was doing stage plays all around Vancouver, and somebody saw me, an agent saw me and said, come do villains. Okay. And that was 1993 or 94, something like that. And they kept encouraging me by hiring me, and then I eventually really liked it, and I just kept doing it for 30 years. A little bit shorter story, but that's my story.
I'm in awe. You play the French horn. Mm-hmm. He plays the French horn. That's amazing. I love that. Thank you.
My first instrument was clarinet. Never mind. Now, I was one of those kids who wrote plays at the age of 5 and got in grade 5 actually, and got my friends to do them for the neighbors and stuff. It's the thing that I've always wanted to do is be an actor. Went to university, studied theater, went to the American Conservatory Theater Conservatory School in San Francisco, and then to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And then went up to Canada to take a look around, wound up getting hired to do a children's theater tour, of course, as we all do, and just stayed. I came down to work in Miami, actually, in '86. I was doing some theater in Miami. And one of the people that I was working with said, geez, you should come and work at this recording studio where we dub things. So I wound up going out to Hialeah, and where they had this wonderful studio that was owned by some lovely Cuban people who dubbed everything into Spanish in the daytime, and at night We would dub things from Spanish or German or whatever into English. In those days, nowadays you've got time codes, you've got crawls that go across the screen, you've got beeps that tell you when to start talking and when to stop talking. In those days, you waited for the mouth to move and then you moved your mouth until the mouth stopped and then you stopped until it went again. I remember I had a speech in an Italian movie about pumpkin soup that took me 3 hours to get through. It was just amazing. But that's basically where my voice career started.
Wow. Did you ever do like actual loops?
How do you mean?
Well, when I used to do ADR,
Yeah.
and we used to do this thing they called it looping.
Yes.
And the reason why they called it looping is because they had these loops of film of the stuff that you had to add dialogue to, and they'd run it through a 16 mil projector.
Right.
These loops like this, and it would loop, and you're watching the film, and there was 2 black lines,
Right.
and the 2 black lines would go like this, and as soon as they joined, you start talking, and it took forever because they had to first get the loop down pat, but then they had to take the loop off and put a new one on. And that's why they called it looping. And it took all day long. Now with the digital,
Oh, it's
you
so
go,
much easier.
beep, beep, beep,
Yep.
talk. And you can just over and over and over again really quickly. So you can do a whole looping session like an hour if you've got a major part, or 5 minutes if it's only a few lines. But back then, it would take all day. So it was...
Things have changed for the better, for the easier, that's for sure.
We had to yell at the tape so it would stick. But that's the old days.